everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Monday Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth of Motor City Madmouth, along with my regular partner, George Eichorn. George, how's you and your family doing over Labor Day weekend?
Very good, Scott, and happy Labor Day to you and all our listeners out there. And
we welcome back Damon Knight back to the broadcast. Damon Knight is the South Florida Tribune correspondent, and he's actually come up with his own broadcast, the Damon Knight Show, which he will talk about later. Damon, how have you been?
I've been pretty good, Scott. How you been?
I'm doing fine, thanks. So obviously you wrote a story for the Tribune on Jacoby Jones. Why don't you let our listeners clue them in about what you wrote about Jacoby Jones, who was sustained an injury against the Milwaukee Brewers last week at Miller Park.
Yes, unfortunately, Jacoby Jones suffered a left-hand fracture during a game against the Milwaukee Brewers. It was in the 8th inning when Phil Bickford threw a 90.3 pitch to his hand. It ricocheted off of his hand. He immediately dropped, and it was swollen. It turns out he has a left-hand fracture. He'll be gone for the rest of the season. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens. This is the second straight year in which he's had a hit-by-pitch injury.
Yeah, he's a great competitor, too, George. And I think he was one of those trade deadline deals with the Pittsburgh Pirates that actually worked out for him. I'm trying to remember the pitcher that they traded for him. I'm sure that might jog my memory. Do you remember at all?
Yeah, that was Joakim Soria.
Yeah, Joakim Soria. Thank you. All right, yeah, I remember.
Joakim Soria. Right. Well, and it is a sad case because I tell you what, this kid was having a really good season, Scott and Damon. Jacoby was hitting well. The Tigers had him in the lineup regularly. Either the number 9 hole, he was doing really good. And then, of course, manager Ron Gardenhire moved him up to the leadoff spot because the Tigers, quite frankly, needed a new leadoff man. And again, like you said, Damon, it's very unfortunate. 2 seasons in a row now, this kid has been, thrown off the roster because of an injury. And it's so disappointing. But he does have a positive attitude, like you said, and he just has to come to spring training next year with that positive attitude and heal up and get back into playing form.
Yes, exactly. He was hitting .268 with 5 home runs and 15 RBIs in 30 games. That's huge production with a young core of Tigers players coming through the system. And to lose him, it suffocates the rookies from learning from a veteran like himself and progressing too. And so it's something the Tigers have to pick up some slack on, but they have with Derek Hill, who they just brought up. They moved Victor Reyes to center. Victor Reyes is tearing it up with .311 batting average, 4 home runs, and 12 RBIs. So he's definitely picked up the slack, and it's just up to the rest of the team to follow suit.
Yeah, what I like about Jacoby Jones, I love his energy, his intensity, and of course he's pretty quick too. And Victor Reyes was a Rule 5 player that the Tigers acquired a couple of years ago, and sometimes you can land a lot of these Rule 5 players and they turn out, and they've had a lot of patience, and Victor Reyes has turned out to be a fine player. All right, let's talk about Ron Gardenhire, the Tigers manager. I know George and I during pre-production had different feelings about Ron Gardenhire. George, go ahead. Why don't you give me your thoughts on Ron?
Ron is he's done a nice job with the Tigers. He's done a nice job with the kids. I know that the jury is still out as far as whether the Tigers and general manager Al Avila is going to extend a contract extension or not. Unfortunately, he got a real bad stomach bug, and he had to miss 2 games in Minnesota. And bench boss Lloyd McClendon stepped in for him. But I think it would be a safe move to extend him, but I don't think he's looking for just 1 year. I don't think he's going to want that, and I'm not sure the Tigers are going to give him more than 1 year. My concern is just that, like you and I talked about, Scott, in pre-production, is he the right man with all the youth on the team right now? Damon?
Yeah.
I think so, yes. And I think because we have young core of players and we're not ready yet to compete for a title. And he's the perfect coach just to teach the fundamentals to make sure that they can get there eventually over time.
Yeah, and
he has a record of 129 and 232 losses, but you really can't blame the guy because of what he's dealing with the lack of experienced players. So I just give it time, and over time we'll see.
Yeah, and I have a different opinion out there. I think there are a lot of good younger managers out there. I don't know if you're going to find out the next Kevin Cash is out there, but but there are some good young baseball guys out there that I think you can bring in. Now, obviously, I'm not making the decisions, but there are some good baseball minds out there, and I'd be curious to see whether or not they might look into that again. We'll find out. We still have, I don't think the Cardinals doubleheader in Comerica is being made up, so I have a feeling the Tigers are going to cap out at 58 games unless they find a way to make up those two due to the COVID-19 postponements. But, 58 games where the Tigers seal out. So you never know. Again, it is a very strange season. You wonder how many managers or skippers are going to get let go after the year. I still think there's a young baseball guy out there that they could bring in. But again, how do you let a guy go during a shortened season? I guess there's two schools for thought there. So, but it's good.
I think
go ahead.
The thing that really, Scott and Damon, the thing that really concerns me about Gardenhire is, it's been a long time since he won that World Series. Okay,
right.
You're talking about the Twins when they won the World Series under Gardenhire was back in 1991. For crying out loud! Last I checked, that was 29 years ago. So, and again, I know it takes a lot to win a World Series, but he's had a lot of so-so records with Minnesota and now with Detroit. And the thing is that he is a steady influence. So I agree with that. He doesn't rock the boat. He seems level-headed. He's kind of in that Ralph Houck mode with the Tigers had way back in the day, as you remember, Scott, when they were trying to get kids like Trammell and Whitaker and Gibson up to the major leagues. And Morris, Ralph Houck was kind of the early guy that they had before Sparky came along.
Right.
So, yeah, I can see both sides of this issue, fellas, to keep him or not keep him.
Yeah, now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Tom Kelly was a manager of that Twins team, but wasn't Ron Gardenhire on the coaching staff?
Ron was manager from 2002 to 14, I believe, with the Twinkies. You're right.
Right. So I believe
he was a World Series champion, but you're right. That was more or less as a coach.
Right.
Correct, Scott.
Right. So I believe Tom Kelly was the manager of the Minnesota Twins, and Tom Kelly did a heck of a job with the Twins. So
right, but you got Ron did win Manager of the Year though with the Twins in 2010. So that was about 10 years ago, right?
Right, but he's had sustained success with the Twins, and he had quite a few good years there. But Tom Kelly, I believe, won the 2 championships. Either way, Ron's a good baseball guy. He really, really is. And he has a tough job. And I love the comparison that you have with Ralph Houck. That's a really good comparison, how he set the table up for Sparky Anderson. And I think Gardenhire knows I'm setting the table up for somebody. I am. But he's okay with it. He's accepted that. Damon, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with what George was saying as far as Hawk. I'm not really sure who he is, but
before your time, Damon, that's okay.
What'd you say?
Before your time, we're not holding that one against you, pal. That's okay.
I definitely agree with. I definitely agree with him setting the table for someone to come in and succeed him. His job is to basically make sure that these players are where they need to be for the next guy to come in, and I think that's a beautiful spot to be in.
The only thing
you'll get credit for it.
The only thing you'll have to do with Ralph Houck, Damon, is just hit that thing called Google and do a little research. You'll get to know. But we're not.
Ralph Houck, okay.
But we're not holding that against you. Mark my word. I remember interviewing Ralph Houck many years ago when he was the manager of the Boston Red Sox, and he told me what a tough job he had with the Tigers' young talent that Sparky Anderson inherited. So that's all right. Now, let's continue on the Tigers, and we'll talk about Joe Jimenez. 1-3, 5 saves, 10.13 earned run average. Ouch. Not a good road trip. He had 2 losses. He has 5 saves, 10.1. That's pretty rough. I mean, at what point or another with Joe Jimenez, okay, do they either move on from him or find him a different role? To me, he's a very puzzling story.
Do you want to go first, George? Or?
Yeah, Damon, just quickly here. First of all, Scott and Damon, it's too early to give up on him. He's got a lot of value. He's got a hot arm, 95 plus sometimes miles per hour. I do give you this, that he has been given the opportunity. They have gradually brought him in and tried to groom him to be that closer. He was the setup man last year and a half. This year he got 5 saves, like really quick, like quick saves, I mean, when the season resumed. And it looked pretty good, but ever since then he's really flattened out. I don't know if it's the zip on the fastball, the curveball. I can't be for sure, obviously, on that. But I know that obviously his pitches are not hitting the mark. That he's telegraphing those pitches too much, and the batters are taking their best cuts at him. And obviously he's given up a lot of home runs. And Damon and Scott, I don't know, other than the fact that they could send him down to Toledo, just kind of give up on him here on the Major League roster. That's always an option, right, Damon?
Yes, you could do that, but with the coronavirus and everything going on right now, it kind of prevents him from doing that. I think this whole thing has kind of caused a dilemma as far as players getting into shape and getting into a rhythm. And you look at the Yankees, how they're struggling right now, especially with injuries and stuff like that. It's unfortunate. Yes, you don't want to give up on him because he's still young. He just needs time to just get into a rhythm. But unfortunately, we're in a 60-game season where he can't quite do that. So he's just going to have to ride out with the growing pains of the season.
Well, I don't know about that. I disagree with both of you. I don't think he's going to lose his confidence. I just think sometimes guys get sent down to the minor leagues with the intent to try to figure it out, then they bring him back. Don Mattingly tells me that all the time with the Miami Marlins. Sometimes we'll send a guy back down to Jupiter and, let them regain their confidence. Once they become sharp, they just bring them back. I don't think it's about a confidence thing. Depends on the manager, what their philosophy is. Donnie tells me that all the time. He really does. So, I don't know. I mean, you have Toledo, work it out, try to get your mechanics straight, bring him back, and hopefully he gets it figured out. Yeah, because remember, they're still in a pennant race because of the abbreviated season. And the Tigers can't afford to lose a whole lot of other games. Now, bear in mind, they have an important 2-game series on the next 2 nights against the Milwaukee Brewers at Comerica Park. That's what they've got. So we'll see how that all plays out for sure. So, I don't know.
One of the things I wanted to mention too, Scott, and Damon knows this too as well, what Gardenhire has done now is he's put him in a less pressure situation.
Right.
He's taken Jimenez out of the closer role, and using him, middle of the game, getting a select batter or 2 out. He did pitch a scoreless inning today, finally, thank goodness. I don't know if it was the 7th or 8th inning. Do you remember, Damon? But he did pitch 1 scoreless inning today.
Anytime you have a guy in a low...
I believe it's been like the 7th inning.
7th inning, that's
6th, 7th inning, yes. And then Soto would come in later.
To be honest with you, I would still do that with him. I would not put him back in the bullpen, in the closer role just yet. No, sir.
Yeah, well, you're right. Low leverage situation, so that way he doesn't have to feel like, he has ice in his veins, whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? Or they're freezing and all of a sudden he's all of a sudden looting up. Because I think relievers are an interesting breed. They really, really are. And, you want them in low leverage situations, low risk situations. That way you're hoping you can regain that confidence back at some particular point. You really do. Because right now, he's drawing that fine line about you have a guy who throws quickly and fast, okay, but velocity is one thing. It's another to be able to make sure that you're hitting your target and throwing strikes instead of just wildly throwing. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Joe Jimenez. But this last road trip up to Minnesota and Wisconsin didn't do Jimenez any favors. We'll continue to stay on the Tigers for a moment, okay? And I'll tell you a guy that wishes there was a minor league season, Casey Mize. Mize, obviously, I think could have been a beneficiary of AAA instead of being up in the big leagues, and that's where he would have been with Toledo Mudhens. But problem is that there is no season. But in the 4 games that he's been out there, you're talking about 4 games, 14.2
innings.
2 innings pitched. Okay, with an 0-1 mark, 6.75 earned run average, 13 strikeouts against 6 walks, 3 home runs, 11 earned runs, and 12 runs. And I know he got a lot of strikeouts early on. So what about what's the deal with Casey Mize?
I think the jury's still out. Excuse me. This is George. I think the jury's still out obviously they're not really concerned about, the earned run average is not going to be there because he's only pitching 3 innings when he goes out there.
Right.
You don't want him to have a high ERA, obviously, but I am a little concerned because I thought for sure that he would catch a lot of the batters off guard. He has good repertoire of pitches. Don't you agree, Damon?
Yes, I do. Yes, and he'll figure it out. It's just he's still young. He's got to figure it out, and he'll get there.
Yeah, and the thing is that you can't just depend on him. I mean, School, he's been pitching pretty good for them, and then of course they shut down Matt Manning down in the Toledo complex because of some arm fatigue, and Funkhauser was brought up, and so we're getting a good look, Scott, and at a lot of the young arms of the future. But I think, you just like you said, Damon, it's going to be. It's going to be, I think, a good career for Mize and a lot of these guys. It's just you brought right up into the big leagues and you put right into the fire. Like you said, Scott, ideally they wanted him to prep all year at the AAA level at Toledo.
Matt Boyd seems to be a very interesting story to me. Seems like he's regressed.
What was that again, Scott?
Matt Boyd.
Matt Boyd has had a lousy year. I mean, let's call it a spade, pardon my expression. He has not had a good year, and I'm very disappointed in Matthew Boyd. He's supposed to be the leader out there. He's the ace of the staff, especially with Jordan Zimmerman going out with the arm injury. The leadership is right there. It was all there, right on the table for Matt Boyd. And quite frankly, I don't know what's gone wrong. He has pitched a little better the last couple of outings, but I'm like you. I'm disappointed in that, aren't you, Damon?
Oh, yes. And you look at last year where he was just dominating, striking out hitters, and just blowing through the lineups. And now it's like he can't throw a strike to save his life. He's got an ERA of over 11, and it's unfortunate.
Okay. All right, let's talk about a different cat. Those cats that play at Ford Field, the Detroit Lions. All right, Damon.
Yes, Adrian Peterson.
Your thoughts about the Lions signing of Adrian Peterson? He's reunited with Darryl Bevel, who he worked with the Minnesota Vikings. Good signing?
Yes, and he'll help the running backs behind him, and DeAndre Swift and Bo Scarborough and other running backs that they brought in. And
Kerryon Johnson.
Yes, Kerryon Johnson, thank you.
I believe
it'll help them out with the system that they're trying to run.
The latest I heard about Bo Scarborough was he was put on injured reserve. That's what I've heard earlier today. I don't know for sure, but I'm 99% sure that he had. But regardless,
I got the official word, Scott. You're right. It was earlier today that the Lions PR department finally acknowledged they signed Adrian. Of course, he had to pass his physical, and at the same time, they did announce, unfortunately, that Scarborough's on injured reserve. So God only knows how long he's going to be out of the lineup. So I think it's a good deal to pick up Adrian. There's not a lot of risk involved here other than the fact that you're offering him a 1-year deal, but good deal. I mean, this kid comes with a lot of experience. He's a veteran. He can be a good leader, like you were alluding to, Damon, with the young running backs that they have. And I think it's a very solid pickup. I mean, they were trying to get him years ago, weren't they, Scott?
I believe they were. In fact, that deal, you want to talk about a very team-friendly deal. I think it was for slightly over $1 million with $2.3 million in incentives. So I had 898 yards for the Washington football team. And for them to be able to reunite him with Darryl Bevel, a guy who knows them all too well at Ford Field, I think it's a good move. And I believe he's an Oklahoma graduate, like the Lions have had no problem bringing in former Oklahoma running backs. And Adrian Peterson is the latest one. In fact, going into the year, Adrian Peterson sits 5th on the all-time rushing list with 14,216 yards. And number 4 is, yes, you guessed it, Barry Sanders, 15,269, 4th, only 1,053 yards behind Barry Sanders. So, hey, if he's going to go ahead and pass Sanders this year or whatever, at least you might as well do it wearing a Lions helmet.
Yes, and it's going to look beautiful. Yeah, on the yards. Yeah, it's going to look beautiful on the turf.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it though.
Well, I think the Lions. I pegged them for 8-8 guys this year. I know we're talking about Peterson, but I think overall, I mean, they've got an outside shot to go 9-7, make the playoffs, but that's a big jump. You got to remember, they were 3-12-1 last season, 3-12-1. But of course, without Stafford, they lost every game, as Matthew Stafford, as we know, was injured. So I mean, you got a healthy Stafford. You got a better than even shot at finishing 500 or better, I think.
Damon?
Yes, I think 9-6 this year. I think we're going to struggle a little bit within our division, especially with Chicago and Minnesota. As far as Green Bay, I feel like we're going to sweep them this year. Just because I think Aaron Rodgers has kind of dropped off and they haven't really regained any traction in the division. So, yes, 9-6 is what I'm predicting.
Oh, then are you telling me that a game's going to get canceled because of COVID, because it's a 16-game season, not a 15?
I hope not. That'd be terrible.
Well, because 9-7 gives you 16. Just kidding. Busting your chops, Damon. Unless you plan to throw a tie in there. Just kidding.
Oh, yeah, 9-7. My bad. Yeah.
That's
I
okay.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding. Don't worry. We won't hold the mathematics against you.
I'm rusty. Yeah.
No, you're not rusty. That's okay. Well, you never know. But let the mathematics be what it is. I'll throw another wrinkle into the whole thing. I think you guys are probably right, 9-7. The best case scenario with them. The key is if you give Matthew Stafford a running attack, any kind of a running attack, he'll be better off, because the one thing few people understand about Peterson is not only is he a good runner, the guy can catch out of the backfield, so he's a dual threat is really what he is. And you get him in the open field, and defenses are going to have a lot of issues with him. But I think the real thing that we can't really lose sight of is this is do or die for the Lions. I really believe it. Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn are on the hot seat. And you know what, Damon? If you didn't know about Ralph Houck, you certainly didn't know anything about Joe Schmidt, right, George? But he does know about Jim Caldwell, because Jim Caldwell was the last full-time coach outside of Joe Schmidt to have a winning season as a full-time coach. So, George, we're not going to give the kid a hard time about Joe Schmidt. Okay, as long as he knows a little something about a transistor radio as well as a payphone.
I'm telling you, God, you bring up a good point. I mean, Bob Quinn came in and said that, Jim Caldwell, you're not good enough. Okay, you got to the team, you got the team to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, but you're not good enough. 9-7, that doesn't cut it. Well, excuse me. Last I checked, Mr. What's his name from New England has not done very well. Patricia. So you're right. They are on the spot this year, and they still got that thing hanging over them. You're right, Scott, about Jim Caldwell, and he was a good man. He was very well liked by the players, and Mrs. Ford really liked him, the owner. And it was kind of like Bob Quinn's final decision. Now, don't get me wrong. I wanted the team to do better as well. Okay, as a media member, I of course you wanted them to get better than they were under Caldwell, but to deserve a blanket firing, I'm not so sure about that. And then Matt Millen had made the same mistake when he fired former University of Michigan coach Gary Moeller back in the day, when Gary Moeller had taken the team after the dismissal of who was it, Ross?
Yeah, right. No, good point, George. I thought Gary Moeller deserved the full-time job. I believe he was 4-3 after he took over for Bobby Ross. That to me is very mind-boggling why Gary Moeller never got the opportunity to get the job full-time, any more than when Wayne Fonts went out there, took over for Darryl Rogers, earned the job. And, of course, we all know a trivia question these days, who's the last Lions full-time coach to win a playoff game? Well, Wayne Fonts. And for whatever it's worth on here, I actually went to school with Wayne Fonts' son, Mike Fonts, over at the University of South Florida. So how you talk about how things come full circle, that an interim guy deserves an opportunity to get it full time. It doesn't quite work that way with the Lions all the time. But Gary Moeller deserved a chance. He really did. Why that never happened is anybody's guess any more or less. And I'll even take it a step further. Why Jerry Vanisi never stayed around was just a bad decision by the Lions ownership, because he was a very competent football man that guided the Chicago Bears. So, again, the Lions have made a lot of bad football decisions. Everybody thought that Matt Patricia, was the next Bill Belichick. Now, the guy I have on here, Steve Ballesteri, who I work with every from time to time, we'll be doing something every Wednesday night, said the difference between Matt Patricia and Brian Flores is Matt Patricia tries to copy Belichick like an Xerox copier, whereas Brian Flores is his own person with the Miami Dolphins. So it's one thing to do things the Patriot way, from duplicating the hoodie and all that, but personality coming from a coach is really what stands out in my mind. It really is. But I think that if the Lions don't compete, if they're under 500, 7-9, 8-8, I think a coaching change has to be made. I really do. I mean, I think they're bringing on Adrian Peterson. They're trying to make whatever upgrades they have to. This year is do or die for the Lions. It really is.
Yeah, and, I would like a guy, it's not going to happen because he's under contract. I would like to have John Gruden as our coach. I think he'd be great. I think he'd have the personality that you're looking for, add that fire to compete and to get better every single week and week out.
Sorry, Damon. Don't agree with you on that one. John Gruden's happy with the Las Vegas Raiders. Got a 10-year contract from the Davises. There's perception, there's reality, and we'll just say dreaming is what it is. No disrespect to Damon, but
no.
If I had the choice to go out there and live in Las Vegas with the warm weather in Detroit, okay, even though you have 3 casinos, you do it. But John Gruden's well taken. I realize, and you know what? To me, I'm not crazy about John Gruden. Now, if you want to get a Gruden of any kind, you might be able to get one in Jacksonville by the name of Jay Gruden. Maybe he deserves a second chance after what happened with him in Washington. But I think you got the wrong Gruden there, Damon. Jay Gruden's available. John Gruden, not so much.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just adding the personality part. I know he's not going to go out of there, with $100 million contracts for 10 years.
Right. Well,
there's no way.
Well, I know. You're talking about a guy that has a fiery personality. But, I don't know whether or not Patricia has a fiery personality. Do you think, George?
Matt Patricia does have fire in his belly. He does. It's quite big belly he's got. But all kidding aside, no, he has fire. I think that this is obviously a crucial year. That goes without saying. Sheila Ford Hemp, the new owner, has agreed with her mother's assessment that these guys have to win this year or else. Puts tremendous pressure on Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. But I somehow think that they're going to come through. They had this unity thing with this racial injustice thing. They walked out of practice together, hand in hand, locked arms with the team's coaching staff. And I think that was a good sign of the unity. I feel that there's something, I don't want to use the word special, but there's some goodness coming through in training camp this year. And obviously it's been a very difficult camp for all teams because of the no exhibitions, no preseason games. But there's something that I think can be said about that unity. And the question is can they parlay that into wins? Because that's what they have to do at Ford Field this year.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. When the Lions did decide to cancel practice to take on the Justice for Jacob Blake and the Black Lives Matter, that, to me, I was extremely impressed by the fact that Matt Patricia spearheaded that effort and the rest of the team followed suit. So that's an excellent point that the Lions were one of the first teams. In fact, I think they were the first team to cancel practice, and then the rest of them followed suit. So, yeah, I guess if there's anything to say about unity, I'll give Matt his due there, but that only goes just so far because right now they need wins. They don't need to score. We're not looking for brownie points. They need wins, and they need them right away. And you also have to wonder the window for Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia, we know what his window, but what about Matt Stafford? The guy's amassed over 40,000 yards, right? And I still think he's the best quarterback that they've had since Bobby Lane. I love Matt Stafford. I always have loved Matt Stafford. I love the way he throws the football. I love some of his sidearm throws when he's in traffic. And to me, he wants to be there. So, to me, I don't like to view myself as a fan, but if I were to say I were a fan of any type of quarterback, other than the fact I've always loved Brett Favre anyways, Matt Stafford to me is a guy that I think is one heck of a quarterback, and he's great for that franchise, great for that town. So I'd like to see Matt Stafford do something that Tim Tebow was able to do. And I mentioned Tim Tebow win a playoff game. Because when you think that Tim Tebow won a playoff game, and a lot of other great quarterbacks haven't won one, like Andy Dalton haven't won one for a while, and there's never won one, Stafford, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Put it in
yes, it's very weird. I saw that game with Tebow when he beat Pittsburgh over the middle with that catch, thrown over the middle, pass over the middle, and that was crazy. And I kind of wish he had more talent and he would have stuck around more. But yeah, it's crazy.
But the irony is the fact that Tim. Go ahead.
Go ahead, George.
George? Oh, now I've been called George. I love all the nicknames.
The thing is about Stafford, though, guys. I mean, again, you can surround yourself with good players, but he needs great players around him. Yeah. Obviously, good players or average players are not going to do it for Matthew. And that's no knock on him. Like you said, Scott, he's got some amazing statistics, but people are talking about Hall of Fame career. Well, I'm sorry. Hall of Fame career without playoff victories to me is null and void. I don't go for that. I don't buy that 1 second. He's only been on one Pro Bowl. Excuse me. You can have your 40,000 yards, but you've been one Pro Bowl and you haven't won a single playoff game. To me, the jury is still out. Thank you. Out on Matthew Stafford.
Well, okay. Hey, listen, you know what? You made a lot of people, the critics' points for you. No playoff wins, good talent. So, yeah, pretty hard to debate that, and I won't even dare to try. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I still love his skill set. I really do. But you got to remember, the Lions front office has been very dysfunctional as well. How many of the draft choices that they picked have stayed around? You think about that for a minute, too, George and Damon. Okay? You got to start hitting on these draft choices. You really do. And when you get good players, okay, you got to keep them. Back then, and Ndamukong Suh was in his prime, they botched up that contract situation. How many contract situations can you botch up, especially when you're headed in the right direction? When you think about...
Excuse me, but he had a Hall of Fame pass receiver in Calvin Johnson, okay? I grant you that, Scott, though. He was not surrounded by the best guys on the offensive line or in the offensive backfield. You do bring up a good point there. But I know he had Calvin Johnson, and what a marvelous career Calvin had, and what a sad shame that his career came to an end with obviously no playoff victory either in Detroit.
Why? Why don't they have playoff? You tell me, George. Okay, you're not cashing in on your higher draft choices. Think about it.
No, I think you're right, Scott. It's the drafting, it's the scouting, it's the what you do on draft day, what you do in the trading and free agency. And you're right, they have botched it up. Matt Millen botched it up, and now Quinn has had his shot for 4 or 5 years now. Come on, I agree with you, Scott. It is a lot that you're expecting Matthew to do. I see your point on that. When it's the surrounding cast that has been very, and plus all the coaches, all the coordinators he's gone through, all the quarterback coaches, all the offensive coordinators. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But you're right. I understand what you're saying too, Scott, from your perspective.
Well, you can't let good players get away. Darius Slay left. He was a fine player. I mean, I'm sure the list goes on and on. So you keep letting good players go. What do you expect Stafford to do? What about all the sacks that this guy gets hammered with, okay? Didn't you think at some point Matthew was going to get a back injury of some kind? All those consecutive games that he played with an inept offensive line. How do you talk about a franchise where players like Barry Sanders leave early, okay? Why did Barry leave early? Wayne Fontes was on a roll, brought in Bobby Ross, good stats, okay? I'm a firm believer to this day, okay, that if Wayne Fontes remained the coach of the Lions, Barry Sanders would easily be the number one all-time rusher. I really believe that the relationship between Fontes and Sanders is that good that Barry would be numero uno at the top of the rushing charts, not Emmitt Smith. That's just my personal opinion. I covered the team, George, for the Detroit Monitor all the time, and I could get a feeling, and I knew, I didn't cover it just at home at the Silverdome. I covered it home and away. I covered the draft. So Barry Sanders, and if you look back at Barry Sanders when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, who was at his ceremony? Wayne Fontes, by the way. So nobody will ever sit here and tell me that, when great players like Calvin Johnson prematurely retire and Barry Sanders, it's all about the winning culture or lack thereof it. One mistake compounds itself after another. Jerry Vanisi gets let go. Oh, well, and yet he's the guy that was in the front office when they beat the Dallas Cowboys in a game that you were at, George, 38-6 at the Silverdome. Go figure. That team has only been to one conference championship game. They're one of four teams that has never been, to the Super Bowl. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't getting any closer either because they keep running out the door as well. Getting a history lesson there, Damon? What's that?
I said that's a good point you make, obviously. And, it's not going to be any piece of cake either this year in the NFC North with Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago. All those teams tried to make some strides in the offseason, and the Lions are in for a horse race, hoping that they can get at least a wild card, second place finish. But it's going to be a tough haul, and it starts with the Chicago Bears, and the Lions host the Bears, of course, 1:00 on Fox Sports this coming Sunday.
Well, think about the Bears situation. You got a very dysfunctional quarterback situation there. Mitchell Trubisky wins the job. They acquired a high-priced backup in Nick Foles from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everybody thought that Foles would be the starter, and then they had to trade up to get Mitchell Trubisky. The Bears have gone through a lot of quarterbacks as well. So, but again, it'll be a pretty interesting early test over the weekend about which one of these two teams stands a chance. But the Lions need to keep Matthew Stafford on his feet, not his back. And by the way, let's talk about a little bit of Monday Night Football for those of you that are interested. We're talking about college. Brigham Young 31, Navy nothing. And 8 seconds left in the second quarter. My goodness, the midshipmen are getting sunk by halftime. You'll only imagine what the Mormons out in Brigham Young are doing. So, all right, Damon, you're getting a nice...
I tell you what, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised by those scores. Those scores, that score and the other scores from the other day with Marshall hammering their opponent, East Kentucky, and Army slamming their opponent. And now you're saying Navy is getting slammed. Boy, oh boy. It doesn't look good for the midshipmen right now at all.
No, it doesn't. Well, think about it. You got to remember, some of these teams had to cancel games, so they're just trying to fill out their schedule with what's left. So a lot of these games were put together at the last minute just to formulate some kind of a schedule. Just a little update. For those of you that want to find out later on, well, go for it. But anyways, go ahead, David. I know you're getting a good little history lesson here. It's all right. Nothing wrong with that. What's your take about what we talked about here?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that the Lions keep fluctuating great players into their franchise, and they keep leaving due to the lack of winning and getting in the right coaches. And you listen to Calvin Johnson, how he speaks about us. It's not really nice. It's not really a thing to be happy about. Barry Sanders, yes, easily he could have passed Emmitt Smith. He retired at the age of 30. He could have easily beat his record given his ability to run. Darius Slay had some feuds with Patricia about how he was as a player, didn't feel like he was respected enough, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and it's a cancer in our franchise that needs to be cured.
Well, you hope with the ownership change from William Clay Ford to Mrs. Ford, and yet the most recent change, who's that, the daughter now that's in charge? That maybe things will change a little bit. Now, here's another little thing I should point out about the Lions. They haven't had a full-time head coach get hired by another team. I thought Jim Schwartz had a chance to do it. The only coach I think that got hired that was an interim was Dick Duran when he got hired by the Buffalo Bills. And I thought Jim Caldwell had a chance to do it, so go figure. That doesn't look good. So if you're looking to attract a lot of great coaches, They think that you get plenty of time. You can't win in Detroit. And yet, in all fairness to the Lions management, they don't meddle into one's affairs. So I give them that. If you have an opportunity to coach in Detroit, you get time for the most part. You really do. But think about it. When you go to Detroit, you can't win there. What are the odds of you getting rehired somewhere else? Again, I thought Jim Schwartz had a chance to break that. But Jim Caldwell didn't, and of course we all know Joe Schmidt never did, but he was a Lion at heart anyhow. But so all in all,
that point's been well taken over the years, Scott. No Lion coach has gone on to become a head coach, like you said, with the rare exception of Dick Duran in their coaching career. I mean, Steve Mariucci and Bobby Ross and Schwartz, Jim Schwartz, and our boy, what's his name? Oh, under Matt Millen, the one that became the defensive coordinator down in Dallas, wasn't he? Or offensive coordinator?
Oh, you're talking about Marty Morningwig?
Scott Lennon.
Marty Morningwig was Philadelphia.
Oh, Marty Morningwig.
The coordinator, the other head coach in Detroit, the Lions, the general. He looked like a general.
Oh, Rod Marinelli?
He became the coordinator down in Dallas. So.
Yeah, but Rod Marinelli. Owens
yes,
16.
Thank you, Marinelli.
Yeah.
So they've gotten good jobs. Don't kid yourself. They haven't got head coaching jobs, but they have gotten good offensive coordinating jobs with some premier clubs.
Well, think about Bobby Ross from his last coaching job actually was with the Army from 2004 to 2006. So he ended up going with the service academies. Once he got burned out in Detroit, he ended up going to Army. So, go figure. But we've done
that's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so, I mean, and I actually saw him coach in San Diego when the Lions actually played a Monday night game there on Veterans Day when I was actually in Las Vegas. It was pretty interesting. And I was kind of enthusiastic that they did hire Bobby Ross, and I worked with Bobby. He didn't seem like a bad guy. It's just, I think, by the time he landed in Detroit, he was kind of burned out a little bit anyways. And again, I'm a firm believer that if Barry Sanders continued to be with Wayne Fonts, Barry would never have retired prematurely. That's just my opinion. Take it for whatever it's worth. But you're listening to the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Moth, along with my regular co-host George Eichorn. We're glad to have South Florida Tribune correspondent Damon Knight on the broadcast tonight. We're talking about cats tonight. We're talking about tigers and lions. If you want to listen to this broadcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let me repeat that back to you again. You can find the Sports Exchange on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. George Eichorn and I do this every Monday night. We enjoy having Damon on tonight, and all three of us are a member of Detroit Sports Media as well. We'll give them a special shout-out this evening. Any closing thoughts, Damon?
Yes, I wanted to announce my sports show, the Damon Knight Show. It's going to be new to podcast. Anywhere from Speaker to Spotify to iHeartRadio or any other social media platforms. Very happy to announce that. And also you can follow me on Twitter at Damon Knight or Damon KN1993 on Twitter. And for all the latest and greatest sports news.
As well, you can find me on Facebook as well. Well, is that right, Damon? Okay, there you go. And you also have a LinkedIn account. You might want to let people know about that as well.
Yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's under Damon Knight. You can add me, see all the latest and greatest sports news that I post for other websites to draw more media attention towards my show, towards the Sports Exchange, towards my Twitter and Facebook, to stay in the loop.
All right, George, you have a book out there. Let everybody know about it.
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter at DSBA2 and on email. I'll accept your emails at gieichorn@yahoo.com. And my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, featuring Ernie Harwell, Ray Lane, Paul Carey, Frank Beckman, George Blaha, Bud Lynch, Bruce Martin, Van Patrick, Bob Ufer, and, of course, the great Ernie Harwell. You can get my book now for about $20 on Amazon.com, or the link, just click on the link under my profile page on the South Florida Tribune, about me, about us, and George Eichorn and Scott and Candy have a profile link set up that'll take you right to order my book. It's a great book and a keepsake of some great broadcasters in our Detroit and Michigan history. Scott Morganroth, you are featured in that book with two great guys from the past, mainly Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors.
Yeah, it's been a privilege to be in that book for all these years, and I'm glad that we have a chance to let you promote it every Monday night here on the Sports Exchange, a show that actually Damon, George, and I started back in the 80s, and now we've actually been able to keep the tradition going as we have. So, Sports Exchange with myself and George Eichorn, we do this every week, and we did it many years in Detroit, and we did it real well. We didn't care if it was a 2-hour broadcast, 6 hours. We still did it. And I'll tell you, it's always been a fun opportunity when I'm with my longtime mentor, co-host, etc. ... George Eichorn. In terms of getting a hold of us, you can do so on Twitter at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. You can like our Facebook page, South Florida Tribune, Instagram, South Florida Tribune, YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. We will be doing a lot of Zoom calls with these South Florida Tribune broadcasts, so you'll be able to see them visually as well, in addition to what I do on the road with Zoom. And with the YouTube channel. I've been hesitant to go out and do any other videos because of COVID-19, but when things settle down a little bit, I'll definitely go back to doing a little bit more. So please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. I actually write a lot more often. Damon writes, George writes. Well, we get content from our media distribution partners. We have the broadcasts on there, as well as our columnists as well. So anybody that's interested in writing for the South Florida Tribune, feel free to do so. The only content we don't take is politics or religion, but otherwise, pretty much most of the things, if they're in good taste, are acceptable. And you can send your stories over at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can also hook up with me on LinkedIn as well. Scott Morganroth gets it done. So, meanwhile, guys, you done a really super job. I hope everybody's had a good Labor Day weekend, safe, whether you're connected with your families through Zoom, FaceTime, whatever. It doesn't matter. And I also, like I once mentioned, I sent out some kind thoughts to my mother who's going through some medical problems with COPD. Love you, Mom. You're an inspiration to a lot of people out there. And what can I tell you? I'm glad that we're in touch a lot, and I still have you around, and kind of like to procrastinate and keep you around a lot longer. But meanwhile, everybody out there, hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Sports Exchange. Damon Knight, job well done. Listen to Damon's podcast. George, get that book. And you know what? We continue to try to go out there and build the platform we have. So any closing thoughts to both of you? One thing I want to once again mention, one more time, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, Hyped Up Show. Go ahead, George.
Well, I just want to say it's football time. We're back in business, and we still have a Detroit Tigers team in the pennant race. Damon, what about you?
Go Lions, and Tigers. I hope they clinch. I hope they get to the playoffs for the first time in a very long time. Definitely excited to see them in the postseason.
Yeah, I'll give kudos to the Detroit teams, but I also have good, strong connections with the Miami Dolphins as well as the Miami Marlins as well. So, Dolphins, Marlins, I stay in touch with them, Panthers from time to time. So I have a few local biases as well. And, of course, we're thankful that the Jacksonville Jaguars sent us some content. And, of course, we have Florida Atlantic University as well. So what can I tell you? We covered a lot, both in South Florida as well as my hometown of Detroit. So I'm very proud to have connections in both areas. So once again, on behalf of Damon Knight, George Eichorn, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. I can't emphasize enough, folks. Mask up, be safe, social distance, and Black Lives Matter. So until the next time, good night, everybody.